So today we'll be doing a final recap of the Australian Open in 2026, and give out some awards to some of the best matches, some of the players that really made this tournament. So to start, the first thing we're going to do is what I consider wins that shouldn't have been. Now, this basically what this is you take the statistics from a match, from both the player that ended up winning the match and their opponent, and you input those statistics into an algorithm that compares these stats to the stats of matches in the past, looking at who won matches in the past based on statistics and who lost matches in the past based on statistics. You feed their statistics into this algorithm, and basically it uh, it creates a percentage that they thought, like the odds that they won the match, based on just their statistics and based on looking on at past data. So these are going to be all the examples at which you inputted the data to this algorithm, and it predicted a winner that ended up being the loser of this match. Now, when I say predict, it's nothing about looking into the future. It's just that the algorithm does not have the information about who actually won the match in real life. They're only given the stats. So I hope that made sense. It's a little bit complicated. But yeah, these are the matches where the loser had better stats in conglomerate than the winner of the match did. So the first one was a little bit of a surprise. It was the Fritz Stanford Wawrinka match. So Wawrinka's stats in this match were not bad. I feel like that's, I mean, maybe it's not too surprising given how the first set was brought to a tiebreaker and the third and the fourth sets were 6-4, 6-4 to Fritz. But yeah, so that's the first one. Second one, Djokovic Sinner match. This one, it's not too surprising, especially given that Sinner ended up winning more points in this match, and Djokovic was just more clutch in this match. Next, Popper and Mueller, five-setter, very, very close, but the algorithm gave the slight edge to Popper in this match, so give credit to Mueller on those clutch points. Duckworth Prismic, now another five-setter, very close one, tiebreaker in the first. Yeah. And then last one is going to be Musetti Djokovic. This one should be absolutely no surprise. Musetti obviously had the better stats in this match, given how he was dominating in the first two sets of this match before his injury. Now, another possible way to look at this award is kind of like a clutch factor, winning the important points, because the only way for your stats to, like for example, the Djokovic Sinner match is a great example where the only way to win a match where you lose more total points is either you had one really, really bad set, which is possible. I think you kind of can see that in the Duckworth example where he lost the set 6-1, or you could just be incredibly clutch in the times when it matters the most, as Djokovic was in that semifinal. So there's multiple ways to kind of look at this. I just thought it was just interesting to look at, and see which matches the algorithm had trouble discerning who won based on their stats. Uh, and then, so I thought, the winner of this award, I guess if there would be a winner, it's going to be that Musetti Djokovic match, because, I mean, if we look at wins that shouldn't have been, Djokovic himself said that he should have been going home in this match because Musetti played better than him in this game. And then top right, all the way to the right, the PI score, the magnitude of this number dictates how difficult it was for the algorithm to pick the winner. So, for example, in the Djokovic Musetti match, we see a negative 3.3 result for that match, meaning that it was very heavily favored towards Musetti. The algorithm really thought Musetti was going to win. Really thought that Musetti won the match versus like the Taylor Fritz Stanford Wawrinka, where it basically said when you fed the stats into the algorithm, it wasn't quite sure who won. All right, next. Breakout play of the tournament. So three nominees are going to be Elliot Spitzeri, Lerner Tien, and Ethan Quinn. This one is, breakout play of the tournament. What exactly does that mean? Who ends up? What's the criteria for this award? I want to start with Leonard Tien because I think it might be a little difficult to consider his tournament a breakout. I think he just took he went that next step, that extra level this tournament. His big breakout was probably more last year when he defeated Daniil Medvedev in the second round last year at the Australian Open. So but I still thought he was, an interesting debate because he also made the quarterfinals of this tournament. So that's, I mean, that is also a breakout for him. And the other two players that I want to mention are Elliot Spitzeri, had that great win against Joao Fonseca in the first round and played center tough in the third. And then Ethan Quinn, good win against Griekspoor in the first. Got Hurkacz as well in the tournament before losing to Jakob Mensik. Uh, all in all, my breakup player of the tournament is going to be Ethan Quinn. I thought his wins in general were a little bit better than that of Spitzeri's. Very impressed from Ethan Quinn this tournament. Also, just like to mention how all three breakout players of the tournament all American. So impressive for the Americans. Next is going to be upset of the tournament. So nominees for this going to be Ferry Cavalli first round, Nuno Borges versus Felix in the first round, Fonseca Spitzeri in the first round, and Djokovic over Sinner in the semi-final. So, we have three first round matchups once, and then one semifinal. And let's start with the semifinal, the one that's an outlier from the others. This one, so upset of the tournament, anytime you're picking Novak Djokovic at the Australian Open, it's tough to consider him the underdog. However, in this case, in this situation, he was an underdog. Uh, most people were picking Sinner to win this one. Sinner won, been incredible on the hard courts as of late, and has been looking good. And the only hiccup was that Spitzeri match in the third round, but this was definitely an upset and a result that was shocking, not because we not because like Djokovic played well and stuff. It's just we didn't know if Djokovic had that five setter at a slam still in him at the age that he is, and he did. This is going to be one of the biggest, like probably top 10, I would say, legacy defining moment for Novak Djokovic. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, maybe a little bit of prisoner of the moment. But to defeat a prime Yannick Sinner at the age Djokovic is in 5 sets at the Australian Open, that to me is like a big feather in his cap. Now the other three were more, your traditional upset. You have a non-seeded player versus seeded player. Ferry in the first against Caboli was an interesting one. Caboli was dealing with the illness, didn't look fully himself. Borges Felix, this is when going into it, you knew that Borges was going to cause some problems to Felix. Felix has tended to be a little bit upset prone in the past, but he had high expectations, being fourth in the world at the time, and or not necessarily fourth in the world at the time because he's a seventh seed, but he finished year end four last year, and Borges a good player, could won that, especially in the five set environment, really battles and makes it tough for his opponent. And then you have the Spitzeri Fonseca match. Spitzeri, this was his first big win at the tournament. Defeated Fonseca, someone who had hype, someone who people, were lining up that Fonseca Sinner match for the third round. It ended up being Spitzeri Sinner in the third round, and all the drama of that match. So. But in the end, my upset of the tournament is going to go to Novak Djokovic's big win against Jannik Sinner in the semifinal. Match of the tournament. So one of the matches of the tournament was Spitzeri Jannik Sinner third round. The drama of that, the roof closing, Sinner cramping, and there was really a period of time when you were curious and wondering if Sinner's tournament was going to be over in the third round. Yeah. Another match was the final. I thought the final between Alcaraz and Djokovic. Not only did it have so much history behind it, but Djokovic's, his first set really bringing it to Alcaraz really elevated the match for me. And the fourth set was an awesome set of tennis. It could have really gone either way. Djokovic had his break chances, but Alcaraz was super clutch in that one. Second round match between Stan Wawrinka and Arthur Gia. This was one of the stories of the first week of the tournament. Stan Wawrinka, turning back the clock a little bit and having this like having a great performance in this one, going the distance, going 5 sets and pulling out the win in his farewell tour. Awesome to see. And then also, of course, we got to mention the two semifinals. The first one, Alcaraz Zverev. These two matches were the two semifinals were uh, both awesome matches, and I think either one of them could be match of the tournament. And depending on what you like to see out of a match, I could see it going either way. The Alcaraz Zverev one obviously was the grueling, um, super long match that really had multiple like different facets to the match, different like eras of the match. You had the first 2 sets where Alcaraz looked to be, cruising might be a little bit disrespectful, but he looked in control. Then you have the entire match switch on a dime in the third set. Alcaraz starts cramping. He still forces a tiebreak. He's 2 points away at one point from just winning the match, being able to rest up for the final. Um, but then Zverev wins the tiebreaker. Fourth set goes to a tiebreaker. Zverev wins it. And then the fifth set, Zverev up 5-3, serving for the match, have a chance to the uh, make the Australian Open final. And then he gets broken by Alcaraz, and then the entire momentum switches again. Incredible match. Definitely a match that we will not forget for the near future, or the distant future, to be honest. Um, but then the Djokovic Sinner match was a different type of battle. This one was, there wasn't any real like huge cramping issues, physical issues. It was just great tennis being played. It was just Djokovic, every time Sinner had a chance to break Djokovic just found a little bit found that clutch point in him to win the match. In the end, I will give the trophy for match of the tournament to Djokovic Sinner. I would not be I would not at all disagree with you even if you give it to Alcaraz Zverev. I think it's more of a different flavor of ice cream between the two of them. Which one do you like better? The drama and the intrigue of the Alcaraz Zverev, or just the quality of tennis? In the end, what the tiebreaker was for me in this one was that I think I'm more likely to rewatch the Djokovic Sinner match than I am the Alcaraz Zverev match. I think it has a higher rewatchability um, because I think most of the drama in the Alcaraz Zverev match was due to you know not really knowing how it was going to end. I guess both of them are like that. I don't know. I just think that the quality of tennis was just slightly better. Actually, much not slightly better. It was much better in the Djokovic Sinner match. But the drama of the Alcaraz era, you can debate these two for forever. Dominant performance of the tournament. So we're gonna start off quarterfinal Alcaraz versus Demonor. Demonor came to this one absolutely firing, but Alcaraz got him in straights. This one, he won first round. Cilic, Altmaier goes bagel. You're starting to worry for Altmaier, but he turns it around, force a tiebreaker in the third. But the bagel, I mean, that's dominant from Cilic in the first. Against a good opponent in Altmaier. Then fourth round, uh, we had Demonar on the wrong side of a dominant performance. But how about him in the fourth round? Absolutely dominant from him against Bublik, 6-4, 6-1, 6-1. And then Tommy Paul, Davidovich Fokina, 5 straight sets for Tommy Paul, winning 6-1 against Fokina at the Australian Open. Obviously, Davidovich Fokina was dealing with some injury leading to his walkover, but still an absolute dominant performance from Tommy Paul. And then the last dominant performance is going to be Werner Tien versus Medvedev. Who would have thought this coming into the tournament? Had a bagel in the second set, and straight sets win for Tien in the fourth round against Daniil Medvedev. It must just be a matchup issue for Medvedev against Tien, but incredible performance for Tien. And this is going to be my dominant performance of the tournament. Um, Partially due to how kind of like unexpected it was. I think a lot of people were really excited for this fourth round match, thinking that it was gonna go 4, maybe 5 sets. But Tien just flipped the script, played incredibly, and had a dominant performance. So now here's some of the biggest what ifs of the tournament. these are moments that, really shaped not only this Australian Open, but possibly even future legacies and how we look back on the Australian Open and how we look back on players in general. So the first one is going to be more specific to this year's Australian Open, and I'm going to talk about Mensik's withdrawal from the tournament. Now, uh, Jakub Mensik was he played, so he had a five setter in the first round, and then after the five setter, played really well in the second and the third rounds before having a fourth round tie against Novak Djokovic. At least we thought. Now Mensik ended up having to withdraw, and of course we can think back to Miami last year in the final in that where Mensik defeated Novak Djokovic, and it would have been a very, very interesting match. I still would have leaned towards Djokovic in it, but it would have been at least an interesting and intriguing match. And this, of course, also what makes this a big what if as well. Not only is could Mensik have defeated Novak Djokovic, but could he have had played a grueling match that could have tired Novak Djokovic, that could have possibly affected his level in a game, such as it's in a match against, like for example, Jannik Sinner in the semifinal. Now, another one is going to be related to Novak Djokovic, and this is absolutely not a surprise at all. What if Lorenzo Musetti didn't get injured and retire up 2-0 against Nole? Now, Musetti was playing lights out in that match, and I really think that he was going. I mean, Djokovic himself said that he thought that he was going to be out of the tournament if Musetti did not get injured. Now, um, what makes this such a big what if is not only is that Djokovic was going to be out of the tournament, but Musetti was playing at such a level that he could have, um, frustrated players in the semifinal. He would have faced Sinner in the semifinal. Now, this there's a lot of butterfly effects in this because even if we say he didn't defeat Sinner in the semifinal, and I feel like most people would have picked Sinner in that one, then we would have had a Sinner Alcaraz Australian Open final instead of what we had with the Djokovic Alcaraz um, uh, Australian Open final. Also, if Musetti were to have won this match, he would have been up to third in the world um, at the Australian Open at the time live rankings. I think he would have ended up being fourth after Novak Djokovic's making it to the final. But still, he would have been live ranked third in the world for Musetti, which would be his career high. And he would have gotten up to fourth at the end of the tournament. He would have passed Alexander Zverev if he were to have won this match. Now, a big what if, of course, is what if they didn't close the roof in Series Center? Um, this would have just come down to if that was the case. I think this match would have looked a little bit more like that the semifinal between Alcaraz and Zverev, where it was a super super hot day, and I think if the roof didn't close, then Sinner would have lost the match. Now, of course, like I'm not here to argue that the the protocol was put into place for the tournament, and it reached a heat index where they were set to close the roof. All the rules were followed, and it was just a little bit of luck for Yannick Sinner, but doesn't make it not a what if the heat index stayed at a 4.5 or whatever it was, low enough for them not to close the roof. Sinner would have been out of this tournament, and Siri would have been on to the fourth round. And and then you start to combine some of these what ifs, and we look at the if Sinner was out early, if Musetti didn't retire, all of a sudden we're looking at a possible Lorenzo Musetti into a major final if we're not careful. So, and the last what if, and this is going to be my winner for the biggest what if, is what if Zverev won the semifinal? And what makes this the biggest what if, in my opinion, is that you know obviously with the result with Djokovic winning it against Sinner in the other semifinal, Zverev Djokovic at this stage, I would have been so curious to see what the odds were on that match because that could be one of Zverev's best chances to have won a major, um, it's like in a while, and maybe looking into the future as well. It is of no surprise that a lot of people are going to define Alexander Zverev's career very simply on if he can win a major. And that, I think, the way people perceive his career will be very different if he were to get that major. And this was simply a very big opportunity and chance for him to do that. Zverev Djokovic in the final would have been a, a very big opportunity for Zverev. So yeah, that's my winner for biggest what if. Now, these are just, when looking back on the tournament and really reflecting, these are just some matches that, when looking back, I kind of just forgot happened. Were a little bit, sneaky matches, and one of the ones I wanted to just bring up and mention. To start, Zverev Tien, a quarterfinal. Very fun match. Tien played fun, especially in that second set. I thought that was a fun match. How about this third round, Cerundolo Rublev? Tell me you remember that match. Kecmanovic, Echeverry, first round, five setter. This was Echeverry played so incredibly fun and awesome in this match. Got to credit to him. And then in that match, third round, Musetti Makic, player that probably played Musetti's best in the entire tournament was Tomas Makic, forcing five sets against a very informed and fit Lorenzo Musetti. Third round, Kachanov, Darderi. Um, this was one, I mean, great, like incredible win for Darderi to be Kachanov, at a slam on a hard court. And not even to go five, big one here, first set tiebreaker to win. That was huge. First round, Hurkacz Berg, one of the best first round matchups, I thought, going into it. Berg's been playing really, really well leading up into the tournament. Um, and a good win for Hurkacz. First two sets going to tiebreakers as well. First round Paracard, Baez. Baez winning the first two Paracard, third and the fourth. Baez, whenever you're playing a big server like Paracard, great returner like Baez, it's like strength on strength. A little bit of an unpredictable match, and Baez have been playing really, really well on the hard courts on the lead up. And the last one I want to mention is Sebastian Baez versus Darderi. That whole little section, the little mini section of that draw with Baez, Darderi, Kachanov, Paracard was definitely a wild card when previewing the Australian Open because you have a lot of different players. You have Baez, who's more of a clay court specialist, but who had been playing well on the hard courts. You had Darderi, who has kind of really had a great year, but really doesn't have the pedigree on the hard courts. Then you have Kachanov, who is all Mr. Reliable at the Grand Slams, and then especially on the hard courts. And then you have Paracard, big server, who can literally win any match he plays as long as he serves well. I mean, that's a big if. But yeah. Now the winner for round sneaky matches of the tournament is going to go to Kachanov Darderi in the third round. It's a good result for Darderi, one that I don't think is talked about enough. Now for some disappointments of the tournament, Fabio Cobolli, losing in the first round. Stefano Tsitsipas losing in the second round. How about good old Joao Fonseca losing in the first round to Spizzirri? Taylor Fritz. Now, disappointment, he was also injured, so I want to put that as a caveat. But he did have a disappointing tournament. He didn't look too good in the tournament at all. It doesn't look too good this year at all, even. But hope he gets fully healthy and fit. And winner is going to be Felix Auger-Aliassime. Ending last year fourth in the world, good U.S. Open run. You want him to start string together results and see really what he can do this year. And it did not start well with that first round loss to Nuno Borges. And yeah, so that's all the awards I'll be giving out for this year's Australian Open 2026 men's tournaments.